enough of this, enough of putting all of our attention and spotlight and, admiration on things that are so unimportant in the bigger picture. I don't want this to be a hashtag unpopular opinion. I'm not somebody saying that grades don't matter. Grades matter, but success to me is more than just the grades.
Today I'm here with Islam Kafi, and in this podcast series with CEOs and founders, I wanted to talk to her about her company, Coaching Kinetics. So Islam, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about what I do. So I'm a former educator, and I'm a former educator turned full-time academic coach. I know you've heard the term coach before. You probably heard it used in executive spaces or wellness spaces, but we don't often hear it in academic spaces. So my role as an academic coach is to make sure that our students and our teachers are living their best life in terms of meeting their potential and just realizing their own goals.
No, but it really is important because, and it's not to be, undersold really, because I was at a conference at the United Nations here in Qatar the other day, and they were talking about how important it is for teachers to start becoming coaches. Because if you're just there in an academic capacity for young people, then you're kind of doing them an injustice because you're not preparing them for the outside world. We can no longer just be those that help our students get the best grades. There's got to be more to our role. There's got to be some more functionality to the element, to the word of what a teacher means. And so we were talking about how teachers need to be actually upskilling themselves, as it were. So I think the work that you're doing is vitally important. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today.
So thank you for seeing that importance, because it's about time we make that shift. I mean, we need to shift from becoming just that traditional teacher that shares information to becoming actual real facilitators of learning. Unfortunately, I hate to bring up the P word, but the pandemic taught us that it's not the skills, it's not our academic skills that got us through it, it's the other stuff. It's emotional regulation, it's self-advocacy, it's all of these things, connection, all of these values that, unfortunately were brought to the maybe fortunately, but they were brought to the forefront at such a difficult time for the world to kind of say, hey, we need to focus on these skills, and these skills are all teachable, which is the beauty of it. I think we are past the stage where we can put all of our attention and all of our value on academics alone. We need to start seeing students as whole individuals, and we need to see them as resourceful and capable. And I know you're a teacher. Have you met this new generation? You've seen them. They are incredible. They have so much insight. They are a lot further ahead than my generation ever was at that age. So I'm so excited for what's to come. So why not give them the tools to get them to know themselves and be really aware of their own power so that they can take those important steps for all of us.
No, I agree also that the pandemic taught students on-the-job training when it comes to resilience, and they are kind of forced into that position. And I did feel that we didn't really prepare ourselves, students. No one knew the pandemic was coming actually, but we didn't prepare them for that. Just being alone and dealing with their own emotions and their own goals and their own sense of well-being. We didn't do that. And we also, if you think about it, we also didn't do that online really. When we went online with teaching, it was just, right, here's our curriculum, we're now going to shift it online. But there was never well-being incorporated in that. And what a shame, we went through all those years of the pandemic where we had to kind of leave students to fend for themselves. Oh, your well-being, I'm sorry, we've got a curriculum to cover, and look how magic we are, we're going online. Yeah, but where's the emotional training? That didn't come, that was like an afterthought, actually. And the fact that well-being is now placed so high is because it was almost like, in retrospect, we should have done this during the pandemic. Yeah, we should have. A lot of students, when they came back to school, they didn't know how to interact and mingle and socialize because they'd been on their own for so long. They didn't know how to regulate themselves in a social environment once again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, maybe something that big took place so that we can all take a moment and just sort of think about what we were missing and what we need to learn. What is the message here as a global educational community? What are we supposed to be learning from this? Because we talk about learning all the time, but what are we as educators learning? What are we walking away with? We can't go back to the way where it's just like, okay, your grades are the only way I'm gonna, put value to you as a student. Like that, it can't work anymore. As an adult, I'm sure you've come across individuals who on paper look extremely qualified and their accolades are just glowing, but then when you meet with them, they're not very nice. They're not good people. So enough of this. Enough of putting all of our attention and spotlight and admiration on things that are so unimportant in the bigger picture. I don't want this to be a hashtag unpopular opinion. I'm not somebody saying that grades don't matter. Grades matter, but success to me is more than just the grades.
I agree. So I'm going to start you off on our first set of questions, which was, what was your experience with regard to coaching and teenagers? Tell me about your journey. How did you end up launching Coaching Kinetics?
Well, how did I even become a coach was kind of an interesting story. So I was teaching 5th grade at a leading international school in Saudi Arabia. And I was one of those teachers. I used to differentiate. I was very invested. And of course, on the verge of burnout, like most of our really good teachers, that's what happens, unfortunately. So in the American system, kids would leave elementary at 5th grade, then they would move on to middle school. So I would ask about the kids. I'd be like, hey, how's this student doing? How are they? And then I would hear things that are terrible, like that they aren't successful. And it's like, why? They were doing so well academically. And I couldn't figure out where the gaps were. I learned about academic coaching and I thought that was really cool. I didn't realize that I was actually doing that and I didn't have a name for it. A lot of teachers are doing it. I'm not going to claim that I have this solution that only I know. No, I have a solution to a problem that everybody knows.
That people have attacked differently.
And the solution is completely doable. It's completely there. Anybody who has any kind of interest in improving the student experience can definitely participate in this movement towards, just the betterment of our learners. So, I resigned and I took this course to become a certified academic coach, and it was an ICF accredited program. If you're familiar with the world of coaching, ICF is a huge deal. Took the program, became a trainer for that program. Actually, I still train for that program. And during that time, this program is based in the US. I created my own program catered to students here, to the student experience in the GCC.
Tell me about the program and tell me how you've tailored it to students in the Gulf region, because I'm really fascinated by that. I believe there are, from my own experience, I'm sure you put in small tweaks to make it just personalized for the students here. But please tell me about Coaching Kinetics and how you applied it to the Gulf region.
So there's, right off the bat, cultural sensitivity and awareness. We have in our region here, we have a very unique culture where you do have a very beautiful, harmonious blend of locals and expats living together. And there's almost like a culture within a culture. So as an international teacher, for example, coming into this part of the world, it's especially challenging because you not only have to navigate a completely different culture than you're used to, you have to also navigate a culture that was sort of like a almost spin-off culture from your own school community. How to talk to the parents, what's acceptable to say, what's not acceptable to say, how to communicate with your students, how to communicate with your peers. People forget that teachers are people too. Okay, so sometimes teachers get the same insecurities that our students come across, the imposter syndrome, the feeling of that, they're just not performing, they're not good enough, and it's not fair. So my program, ideally, it's actually catered, I'm catering to schools. I'm trying to partner with schools to get them to create a coaching culture from within by training their teachers or their staff, not just educators, anyone who has a touch point with students, to get to give them the coaching skills they need to be able to create that coaching culture within their walls. So this is the mission of Coaching Kinetics, and I believe in the ripple effect.
It does, because once one school subscribes to it and starts to reap the benefits, as it were, the students surrounding the school surrounding that school will also say, what are they doing differently, right? Why don't we assign on to this thing?
It's not even about that. I mean, that's a beautiful ripple effect. I mean, I would love that, right? But honestly, I'm more interested in the ripple effect it's going to create when you have a generation of students who are familiar with the concept of coaching, because coaching is not a trend. Coaching now is the direction that leadership is taking. So when you have students who are familiar with the concept of coaching, and it's just so natural to them, they understand that, hey, maybe I need to talk about this with someone, I need to unpack this idea, and this person that they're unpacking with is not an expert. The person is a professional in coaching, but they reserve the title of expert to the person they are coaching. And this is such a luxury for our students to hear, that at the end of the day, like, I'm literally in the business of empowerment. I have the best job, okay? Because I'm not fixing anything that's broken. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take something good and make it better. So I work in a very positive space. The other myth that I'm hoping to bust in our region is that coaching is not an intervention. A lot of people are under the assumption that, especially students, if they're being seen by a coach, there must be some sort of social or emotional issue that they need to, resolve.
So to remove the stigma, as it were.
Yeah, we have wonderful resources in place already for students who are not performing, whether it's academically or socially, if they're, and also for students who are high flyers, right? Who are quote unquote gifted. There are beautiful resources in place already in our school system. This coaching program is for everybody. This is for the average kid that's not seen, because maybe that kid is a high flyer, but he doesn't even know it.
And that's the worst thing. A student that's a high ability student that has low self-esteem. Now, those two things combined can mean that student can then just fall off the edge, as it were, and not amount to anything in terms of the potential of what they could have achieved, simply because their esteem was low and no one just guided them a nudge in the right direction. So they just, and once a person gives up on themselves, then no one can persuade them otherwise. It has to come from within.
So I recently was part of, somebody asked me to write a chapter in a book about why I do what I do. And I didn't really understand my why until I sat down to write this chapter. And basically it was, in a nutshell, I am the person I wish I had growing up.
I think we all are. I think as educators, we are all the educator that we wished we had, or we saw a glimmer of in one of our teachers. I want to be that, amped up to 100.
Absolutely. And I mean, I had a great experience with, I had wonderful parents. I had, a great school community growing up, but I needed some sort of person, I guess, to tell me that, hey, what, you've got this. You know the answer. I'm not going to give you the answers. You know what you need to do. You need to sit down and think, and what is right for you. What is your gut telling you? That permission to actually feel.
Because the young people are always used to asking someone, right, where do I go now? Even, and I think school counselors are great. I worked in 3 schools in Qatar, but all the counselors I've met all generally have the same vibe, which is their role is to get you into university. So they try and figure out what are your grades, how are those grades going to tailor and link to a degree, and which degree at which university. But that's it. But that's always been the role of the school counselor. And I think a school counselor, if we change up that word to coach, can do a lot more, because they have the time on their hands, and it's just a case of nudging those counselors in the right direction. And I remember when I was at high school, my school counselor just did that for me, and it was a real shame because I didn't really know. I had the grades. I had 3 A's at A level, which is unheard of back then. Unheard of. Like 3% of the country had that, but I didn't have the self-esteem. I didn't know which way I could go and what my goals should be, and where my interests lay. I chose English because I was interested in it, but I didn't have that coach. So I wish I had someone like yourself back then. I would have ended up. I know I love teaching, but I would have done a lot more up until now.
It is such a celebration of the human experience to be able to do. I'm going to say what we do, because it sounds like you're adopting a coach approach in your own classroom as well.
I've done it. So being here for 10 years, I've had students that I've known from 16, now they're 25. 7, 8, 9, 20, 21, 22, 24, 26, 27 actually. So I mentored them. I used the word mentor. Coaching wasn't a word that was in my vocabulary back then. But I used mentor, and I would always guide them. So they'd come in, oh, hi sir, so I'm applying to college, right? And I was only an English teacher in a professional role, but in an unofficial role, I was a mentor to many of the students. Those students went through high school, and they'd come, sir, I'm applying to university. Right, what do you want to do? Okay, cool, let me know how it goes. They graduate, they come over, Mr. Ola, I've graduated, I want to apply for a master's now. Okay, show me a statement, I'll edit it for you. And this is all on the side, apart from my role as a teacher. Okay, great, and now I recently wrote a letter of recommendation for a PhD proposal for that same kid that I knew in high school. And that kid is an engineer now with Qatar Airways.
But why were you doing this?
Because I believe in the betterment of today's youth. I didn't take a salary for it. I did it because young people need guidance and advice. They don't need judgmental adults in their life, and they don't need people telling them what to do. They just need guides.
Yeah, and those guides sometimes come in the shape of someone reminding them that internally they do know the right answer. They just need somebody to...
I like that you said you allow them, give them the permission to have that internal conversation.
Because at the end of the day, it's them versus them. You talk about this student going into university, with their counselor experience, where the counselor says, okay, here are your grades, here are your requirements, this is where you need to go. And then they go off to this university, and then what? They don't all have you, where you're going to have that special. And I think that the word that kept coming up for me as you were sharing is the word connection.
Yeah.
And connection is very expensive these days. And this is something we need to bring back. Our students deserve to feel that connection. They need to feel that they're seen and they're heard, and that they matter. Their voice matters. Their opinions matter. Their ideas matter, because guess what? It is their ideas. Whether we like it or not, we are aging.
Yeah, we are aging. They're the new generation.
So it's time. It's time to just give that power. It's not even about sharing the power. It's reminding this generation that they've got it. They've got it. So that's what I do. I'm in the business of empowerment.
So how does Coaching Kinetics work? Do you go into a school and train the teachers, or do you do one-to-one sessions with students from a school?
Okay, so we haven't officially launched yet. We are launching in the fall in the GCC. I am very, very particular about the launch of this program. I want to make sure, because it's the only one of its kind in our region, I want to make sure I do my best to uphold the title of academic coach. I ran the pilot not once, but twice. I did a market research study. I wanted to make sure that we have everything. So the vision is that a school would hear about what we're doing, would a school that is just as dedicated to the wellness of their community as we are. They would come and speak to us, and as professional development for their teachers, they would enroll in our program. The program is super doable. It's a 2-hour commitment every week for about 8 months in total, including practice time. Like it's a very doable program, and it's a wonderful way for teachers to gain their professional development.
Well, I'm sold. So I'm going to put your description for your company in the links in the video description when I put this on YouTube.
Am I saving you a seat for our next cohort?
Yeah, why not? I will be looking into it myself. I would love to, because I've done it in such an unofficial capacity. I would love to just get the skill set and the toolkit really to do it professionally. Because I've been doing it for so long. So, but not just me. I want it to be more than me. I want other teachers to subscribe to this, because it's such a brilliant and commendable program. So I'll be putting your links below for people to follow.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course I will. I think many schools in the GCSE, they want to provide this to the students. They're just not sure how, and that's the thing. And so I really believe this is it's a really admirable cause, and this is why I reached out to you, and I wanted you to showcase it really, and showcase the benefits and the vision, and you've done all of that.
I really appreciate this, because I've been talking about this since 2016.
Before the pandemic.
Yeah, oh yeah. So to have somebody like you say, hey, I want to hear more about what you have to say, it feels good, because it feels like someone is listening. So thank you for being that someone, and thank your listeners as well for at least, if they made it this far in our conversation and they want to hear more about what we do, by all means, encourage them to reach out to me directly.
I will do that, and I'm going to. This will also appear on Spotify for podcasters, so it'll go out everywhere. And Islam, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And as teachers, we're all coaches, but sometimes you need just to upgrade your toolkit, as it were, upgrade your skill set so that you can do it in a professional capacity and not just in unofficial role of a mentor, as I have over the past few years.
It's time to call it what it is.